I'm doing this because Michael Rockow actually gave me a good idea to do it, so I'm going to do it now. Mitzvah Shem, it's Erev Shabbos. I'm going to try to give partially over what the Shabbos day Drasha is going to be about. So we spoke in the newsletter. It says that Moshe Rabbeinu was humble, and that was why he was the greatest Jew ever to live. That was his greatness. His greatness wasn't his humility. So the question is, so what was Aaron HaKohen? What was his specialty? His brother Aaron. Right? Not everybody could be the humblest person ever to live, or only one person could be the humblest person ever to live. Even the most humble person that we're going to meet today will never ever be able to be the humblest person ever to live, because the Torah told us that Moshe was the humblest person ever to live. So it's impossible for us to we're never going to find another person that's going to be exactly like Moshe Rabbeinu. And the Torah said he was the humblest person to ever live. That means in the future, the past, the present, there's no such thing. You're never going to find anybody more humbler than Moshe Rabbeinu. So we went into that in the newsletter. Aaron HaKohen also is brought down in this week's parsha, his specialness. So it says when Aaron HaKohen went to go do the menorah, right? The menorah he went to go do, and it says he did that every day consistently, as if it was the first time he's doing it. Why? Because that's what God told him to do. So the truth is, we see from there what Aaron HaKohen's specialty was. His specialty was consistency. So the question is, what does consistency mean? So I have a friend that actually he works in real estate. He works for his father. He works for his father now for 40 years or so, approximately. So I used to travel, I guess in 2003, 4, and 5, when I was working in New York as a rabbi for at-risk children, at-risk teens and young adults. So I used to travel with him into New York every day. And his consistency never stopped. So his success continued based on his consistency. We see sometimes there's certain people that just do the same thing over and over again. So I'm not saying it's for everybody to be the most consistent person in the world, but for someone who doesn't have consistency, they have to work on their consistency. Because we have by Aaron HaKohen, Aaron the brother of Moshe, his specialty was his consistency that he did in this mitzvah specifically, in the mitzvah of the menorah. Why? Because we know that his general mentality was not strict consistency. How do we see that? We see that because what was Aaron HaKohen known for? He was known for helping people when they were fighting. That means that what happens is that the two parties that were fighting, either husband and wife that wanted a divorce, or two partners and so on and so forth, or one guy embarrassed another in synagogue, or whatever the story is, there are really main three areas that people can fight over. One area is when somebody ruins somebody else's kavod, his respect, people's respect of him. The second one is when it comes to money. And the third one is a straight out some type of jealousy. That the kineh, taiva, and kavod are the three things that create wars and fights and stuff. And so those are mostly the three things. Jews don't really kill people. You know, how often do you have people that say, "Oh, I'm worried about that Jew because he kills people"? It doesn't really happen. That's not a Jewish concept. So we're not really afraid that they're going to kill somebody. But Jews, if God forbid that they're jealous, so they'll go and do something jealousy. So when these fights begin, sometimes one side, we don't know where it started from, some of these fights, but usually it came from somewhere. You know, a husband embarrassed the wife, a partner was jealous of the other partner, and decided he's doing stuff on his own. And you know, whatever. It's basically based on but what happens is when you want to fix that, how do you fix that situation? So you have to go to each side and understand what they're all about, and give them enough respect or whatever it is that they're missing, and then say the other side really wants to fix this war, this fight that you have both going on with each other. That's the way to fix it. So Aaron, that's not someone who's consistent. That means that someone who's I'm going to say something I probably shouldn't say it. My mother-in-law, right? My mother-in-law, sie sein gesund und stark. She should be happy and healthy for another 120 years. she would never be good at that job. I mean, at least I don't think she would. If she did that job, I'll be so impressed. Even if she did it once or twice, she's done it over the past. But whenever she does it, I'm so impressed. Why? Because she's a person that can't lie. To her, the most important thing in the world is saying the truth. Aaron Cohen, he looked at it and he says, yes, it's the most important thing in the world to say the truth, but it's more important than that is having two people that are interconnected with each other, that just stay that way. It shouldn't be broken apart. That type of person has to change their story all the time. So it's very hard for someone like Aaron Cohen to be consistent, to be perfectly consistent. So the Torah has to tell us that this person who had no ability or wasn't his specialty to be consistent, his job now is to light the menorah every day, and what he did was he worked on himself so hard that every single day it was as if the first time he ever lit the menorah. That's his specialty. So that means like this: I'm a good let's say I'm a good outfielder, right? Let's say sports analogy. I apologize for that. I'm a good outfielder. I could catch fly balls. I'm really good at catching fly balls. Coach comes over to me tomorrow and he says to me, what happens is we have a lot of ground balls going to second base and it's going through. The second baseman's not doing so well. He's not feeling so well. And I say, don't worry about it, coach. I'm your man. I'll cover. I'll be your second baseman for the day. And obviously, if the ground balls come and I actually get all the ground balls that day, everybody will be impressed with me. Go even one step further. In the World Series a couple of years ago, I'm a Yankee fan, obviously, because I'm from New York. They played against San Diego. San Diego had the great player who went to the Hall of Fame and died I think he died. He died, I think, from smoking or something. His name was Tony Gwynn, a great, great baseball player. But his specialty was consistency in batting. That means what's the difference? If someone's a home run hitter, 99% of them, until today's generation, the batting average was usually low. The batting average 270, 240, 250, 260, Jim Rice and all these big home run hitters, Dale Murphy, all the home run hitters, you hardly ever had high batting averages. It's not often you have a higher batting average. Now today you have a couple that, Mike Trout or whoever you have that might have higher batting averages, but, and a lot of home runs. Aaron Judge, of course, because I'm a Yankee fan. But Tony Gwynn in the World Series, his team was down in the World Series. And what he did was, I'm pretty sure it was even in one game, he hit 2 home runs in one game. I was watching the game, so I never looked back to check what game it was and stuff like that. But he hit 2 home runs in one game. That means that what he did was, he knew his team needed runs, and he almost single-handedly won the game for his team, for San Diego. That's what Aaron Cohen did. He said, God wants me to light the menorah as if it's new every day. Because of the way he said it to me. How do I know he wanted this specialty from me? Because he didn't give it to me right away. When all the other Nasiim, all the other heads of tribes, they got what they wanted right away. They helped. They brought karbonos in last week's parsha. They brought stuff to the Beis Hamikdash, animals to slaughter. And he didn't have what to do, and he didn't know what he was going to do. God didn't tell him until afterwards what to do. But the fact that God gave him that time for it to marinate in his mind, this great big mitzvah that he's going to have coming forward, that means that God wants something special about that mitzvah. He wants a special consistency. One of the great ways to create consistency in somebody's life is to see how great that item is, to look forward to it. That means, let's say you can't do a certain mitzvah until a certain time. I don't know. What can we say? Let's say. What mitzvah can we say? Let's say we can't do the mitzvah Pesach. We can't. Of course, you can't do the mitzvah Pesach. Let's say I have a case. God forbid a kid is sick when he's little. He's very sick when he's born, and he can't get the bris. He can't have a bris. He can't have a circumcision. So what happens is that he doesn't have it until he's old enough, and he's always sick as he goes older and older. That person, when he gets circumcised, whenever that is, it will be the greatest thing for him. It's a great, great mitzvah, and he's gonna think of it like this great big mitzvah. So if we could do that on regular daily mitzvahs, sometimes like a child, like my son, this Sunday is gonna have his tefillin put on for the first time. So for 13 years, he could think, for 12 years and whatever amount of days, he could think about, what does it mean to put on my tefillin? My brother put it on 2 years ago. He's been putting on tefillin. I'm the only one in my family the only man in my family without putting on tefillin every day. So we wait 12 years and 11 months to put on tefillin. So the fact is, when they do it, they should be able to see it as consistency and do it every day. And that's the goal. God should bless us all, that we should all be able to take consistency in our life. And in all the mitzvahs that we do, the consistency, not just consistency to be consistent, but consistent because God wants that for that specific mitzvah. Good Shabbos, everybody.